Coming up on 101 Sports.
College football gone wild.
Can the Wildcats go 10 deep?
Plus, Miguel Cabrera turns down his playoff check for nada.
All that and much, much more. And it all starts right now. Welcome back to another episode of 101 Sports. I'm Stephen Normington. Preston, I was thinking, Kerry Perry throwing corn dogs on the set of College Game Day. How can we possibly top that when we end the show?
I really don't think we do, but we could add some mustard. They look a little dry out there. I'm Preston Willett, and here are the starting five. Similar to most sports fans, I expected Derek Jeter to fade into darkness after his retirement, but number two is not done just yet as he created the Players Tribune, a platform for athletes to open up to the public. Recently, Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson wrote an article about domestic violence in his childhood as a bully. Steve, do you think that this is a smart idea for athletes to open up like this, or should they keep their thoughts more to themselves?
First off, it's kind of funny that probably the most quiet and softly spoken player of our generation, that was the most popular, is spearheading this movement for athletes to be open to fans.
And a quiet guy like Russell Wilson.
The one problem I have with this entire thing is Derek Jeter's agent said players should do this because they can't sit down with reporters and have an honest conversation because they don't write the headlines, they don't write the story. Which isn't necessarily true because it's the reporter's opinion, but they can sue them
why not write a book or do a documentary instead? Like, you know, what happened? Players used to just write books if they wanted to get their thoughts out there. Now we have to have a whole little website dedicated to them telling their stories. I
know what you mean, but it's not like the media is that negative that they're twisting headlines to make players look like bad people if they're doing good things. I mean, that kind of seemed like the argument.
They get in
enough
trouble off the field, so I feel like maybe we could just tone it back as far as their public opinion. Maybe bring it back.
And if there's a positive spin, I'd always love to hear that story. Thanks to a wild day in college football, the national media was a little distracted from what's been going on in New England, as tension reached a boiling point between Tom Brady and the New England coaching staff after a blowout loss to Kansas City. But on Sunday night, the Patriots bounced back, defeating Cincinnati 43-17. Were the stories that were kind of whirlwinding around overblown, or should the Patriots have genuine concern, Preston?
Let me tell you, it's all a conspiracy theory that Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have put out there because Tom Brady and Bill Belichick want to have the mindset over every team they play. Look, they want you to think Tom Brady's going to leave at the end of the season, and they want their teammates to actually think that he's going to leave at the end of the season. Because what better motivation than Mr. Patriot leaving at the end of the season because this team's so bad? What's going to get the team going?
That's the beauty of Bill Belichick. He's that dark, twisted mind that will do anything to win. But I have to say, Tom Brady isn't the only person to blame here, and there has to be some legitimate concern within the organization. You have two rookies starting offensive linemen. You trade his longtime friend and starting offensive lineman. And then since 2002, you've drafted 11 wide receivers. Only two of them, Deion Brandt and Julian Edelman, have contributed at a high level for the team. And Julian Edelman, I'm sorry, he's not a number one wide receiver. He's great, but he's not a number one.
No, he's not a number one. I mean, he was a college quarterback, and he's only like about 5'9", maybe a 5'10" on a good day. Yeah, he's more of a slot guy like a Wes Welker, and he's not a number one. But look, Brady can do enough with the talent that he has.
But the last number one wide receiver you got him was Randy Moss. He's not that good. He's Tom Brady, but he's not that good.
No one's Randy Moss. Washington State quarterback Connor Halliday threw for an FBS record 734 yards in a heartbreaking loss on Saturday night versus California Berkeley, which shattered the previous record for most passing yards in a single game. On the other side of the country, Georgia Tech won a close game against the U earlier in the day, which involved the team reaching 262 rush attempts this early in the season. Steve, do you think it's smart for a team to run, a run or pass-oriented scheme like this?
As Vince Lombardi once said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. And coaches are going to implement philosophies and put their players in the best possible situation that they can win. And we talk about a lot of small schools. For instance, the military schools, they run these kind of gimmicky systems, but it's the only way that they can compete with the big boys. So they have to do it.
like a military school or Washington State or Georgia Tech, they're not going to recruit at the level as Alabama, Auburn, LSU, as those top schools. So they got to do more creative things with their system. If that means you got to have a quarterback throw 70 times a game, or you have to have a running back or 5 running backs have 20 yards or 20 carries in a game, so be it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. We've seen college football and the NFL change drastically in the past few years, both implementing similar things to Chip Kelly's spread up tempo offense. After a while, though, defensive coordinators figure things out, so you're going to have to roll the dice.
Look, it throws them off at the beginning, at least a little bit.
Bob Knight's not happy. Shocker there. As John Calipari once again has brought debatably the most talented recruiting class in the country to Lexington once again. The Kentucky Wildcats have a wealth of talent at their disposal, so it's not surprising that Cal hinted that they might run 2 5-man units in a recent interview. Is this possible, Preston? It sounds a little crazy, but is it possible?
Yes, thank you. I've been doing this on 2K15 forever. I don't see why everyone's not following my advice.
You're very successful, I hear,
exactly.
in the online gaming.
A lot of NBA titles come my way. But this, with the amount of McDonald's All-Americans that you have, and now with the experienced talent that you have in Alex Poythress and Willie Cauley-Stein, those are guys that can lead a unit out on the floor.
It's not a matter of can they do it? It's a matter of will they do it. In 2012, we saw a bunch of young gun freshmen take John Calipari all the way to a national championship. What happened the next year, Preston? Losing in the first round of the NIT.
But they also had this. Yeah, I mean,
the players buy into the system. It's quite simply that.
It's complicated because you're trusting so much that these freshmen are going to go out into the court and impact the game like they can. But I think, with the players they have, like the Harrison brothers and all these other guys out there, I think they can do it.
What's truly beautiful for Coach Cal, though, is he can have one defensive unit that's good at running the zone play, one that's good in man-to-man, one that's good in full-point press. You have so many options if you're Coach Cal this year.
How could that not throw a team off? The day before the final round of the Ryder Cup, tensions broke out between teammates of the USA team, which involved some of the golfers questioning the leadership of Captain Tom Watson. Days later, Golf Channel's Brandel Chambly blamed poor USA play in the past couple Ryder Cups on Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods' lazy attitude towards the event. Steve, is U.S. golf failing, and how can they restore that relationship between team and player?
Preston, it's so unfortunate that Tom Watson, an 8-time major champion, is going to be remembered for kind of the end of great dominant U.S. golf teams. In the last 8 out of the past 10 years, we've lost. We've lost to the Europeans. Something obviously has to change. And if Phil Mickelson didn't step up and publicly reprimand USA Golf, nothing would have happened.
He was totally right to do that.
He was in the right.
He needed to do it because Team USA Golf needs a big attitude change. They need a big change just in general right now. Tom Watson did an atrocious job this year. We can all agree on that.
And the talent's there. If you have 4 of the top 10 players in the world coming from the United States and only contributing 2 points over an entire weekend, you've got to step up.
I think we can agree they're taking the right steps to do this, though, with guys adding on a task force committee right now trying to find the next leadership for Team USA with Jim Furyk, Steve Stricker, and then obviously Woods and Mickelson.
I'd love to see one of those young guys step up as well and take some leadership in the locker room.
We'll see.
But we will see. That is all the time we have for the quick hitters, but after the break, our experts dissect one of the most ridiculous weeks in college football history.
How to describe this past college football weekend? Chaos? Maybe, but it sounds just a little weak. What started last Thursday when Arizona took down Oregon ended with a goalpost making its way around the Ole Miss college campus. We definitely need our college football experts, Alex Ofori and Josh Markowitz, now that help sort through the madness that was this weekend. We'll start with Mississippi. Big day for the whole state in general, whether you're a Rebel or a Bulldogs fan. Which one is the better team and why? Josh, we'll start with you.
I think it's Ole Miss, and that's because of their defense. What they did to Alabama, they shut down Amari Cooper, only allowed 1 pass over 10 yards in the air to him. They were able to contain yards per catch, and they're just a better defense than Mississippi State. Top 10 nationally compared to Mississippi State in the 80s, just not liking Mississippi State's defense.
Well, how were they so successful this weekend?
Look, Derrick Henry was ineffective. They gave him almost as many carries as TJ Yeldon. Under 3 yards per carry. Blake Sims had his worst game. And again, Cooper just not being effective. They were able to shut him down after the catch.
I mean, as far as defense, I'm going with Mississippi State. They did enough. They picked off Kenny Hill 3 times, and I'm going to go with Mississippi State also because of their offense. They didn't even let Kenny Hill get on the field. They just straight up dominated Texas A&M first and second half with a balanced attack. It was almost straight 50-50. They had 280 rushing yards, 279 passing yards. And then you have Dak Prescott, who, Bo Wallace, let's admit, he's shaky at times.
He had a good second half against Alabama, which helped.
But he has his stretches, whereas Prescott right now, I think he's the leading candidate for that Heisman Trophy. And I definitely
I'm not
going
to dispute that Mississippi State has a better offense than Ole Miss, But Ole Miss's defense is far better than the gap between the offenses.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
have
but
to
the
go
offenses can't keep up.
I'm going to have to go with Ole
Mississippi
Miss
State.
right now. I just think their defense, they got some impressive pieces all over the place. Laquan Treadwell is a beast. Speaking of Ole Miss, the team that they beat this weekend was Alabama, a top 5 team. And they lost along with Oregon and Oklahoma. So which one of these teams has a better chance of making the college football playoff this year with this big loss? Alex, we'll start with you.
Got 2 words for you, Preston. Roll Tide. Because Alabama, I mean, they have the setup for it. You look at their schedule, I mean, they got Auburn still have to play at Mississippi State. They got plenty of opportunities to prove themselves to the committee.
But they also have more opportunities to lose.
Yes, they do. But I honestly see them, I mean, Nick Saban knows what to do with this team. I mean, even if they lose one more game, I can still see them in the playoffs just because I honestly can see 2 SEC West teams in the final playoff this year. Just because the quality of that division itself.
I think the SEC West schedule is a little bit too brutal for Alabama, so I'm going with Oregon. Stanford's their toughest test remaining, and they get them at home. UCLA, Utah, their other games. And I just like Marcus Mariota better than anybody else leading Alabama, better than Blake Sims.
I mean,
the offense
I do like Oregon, but their defense and their O-line is extremely shaky.
But someone's got to come out of the Pac-12, and why not Oregon right now? After TCU defeated Oklahoma this weekend, several players stated that they could win it and go win the Big 12 title. To do so, they're going to have to go to Waco this weekend and beat the Baylor Bears. Josh, can the Horned Frogs beat the Baylor Bears away?
Absolutely, because Baylor is getting a little overrated coming into this because their statistics are so gaudy because they haven't played anybody. Texas is the best team they've played.
But who has TCU played besides Oklahoma?
But that's the thing. TCU's defense is so strong. They're going to be able to shut down Baylor, and they're equally good against the run, the pass. They'll be fine. The top 10 nationally in scoring defense, containing opponents' yards per plays. They'll be fine.
I mean, I think they'll limit them, but I mean, I think TCU can win, but I don't think they will win. And I mean, Baylor's just been so dominant. Offensively, tops in the nation. Defensively, 5th in the nation.
But again,
yeah,
who have they played?
Yeah, they haven't played anyone, but they've done what they're supposed to do. I mean, all these other teams are supposed to be dominating anyone, but they're not putting up those numbers like Baylor's. I think Art Briles will have them ready for them.
I'm liking what Alex is spitting out over here. I think they can't. TCU has a case to win, but I think Baylor will win in the end. We can only hope that next weekend delivers again, but for now we are out of time. Up next, we head to the Diamond where Steve and our experts will take a swing at the MLB playoffs.
Now it's time for This Week in Bad Stats.
Bad stats?
Horrible stats. Here goes. 132.
That's how many batters struck out 4 times in one game last season.
Wow, very good. Here's a tough one, though. 3 and 4.
No idea.
That's how many kids witness bullying. 3 out of 4.
That's not a good stat.
No, it's not, but it can change. Kids want to help, but they don't know how. Visit stopbullying.gov and give them the tools they need to help prevent bullying.
There are plenty of safe ways kids can help at stopbullying.gov.
Shocking sweeps, managerial miscues, and frustration brewing. What a postseason it's been. And I'm joined by Eric DiStefano and, of course, the famous John Roddy to break it all down for you. First of all, let's start with the team that lost, the Detroit Tigers. Sure. They have a lot of impending free agents. What do you think, though, their moves will be this offseason? And is their champion window closing?
I actually do not think so. And the reason why is because they're always willing to spend money. Since 2007, their payroll has been $100 million or more, at least. And next season, we know at the very least the team's going to have Miguel Cabrera, Ian Kinsler, Verlander, Price, and Anibal Sanchez, and a very young Nick Castellanos. So, and they're going to go out and get some outfielders, potentially to replace Torrey Hunter.
You don't know. You don't know, though.
Oh, I do know.
But you don't know.
They're willing to spend money.
Okay, yes, they're willing to spend money, but how do you know that money automatically translates into a championship? Because it clearly doesn't right now. It does not right now. They just exited the first round of the Orioles.
They weren't that bad, though. They deserve better than that. They're a better team than that.
They got swept. Everyone thought that, the Tigers, they have so much talent. Look at this pitching staff. And what do? They give up 21 runs in 3 games. Money, how does money
it's just 3
factor
games,
into that?
though.
Oh my, it's the 3 most important games of the season.
I know, but unfortunately, yes, you have 3 games to prove yourself, and if you mess up, then your season's over. But we know this team's willing to spend money. Their payroll, without considering re-signing free agents or dealing with arbitration.
I'm going to have to cut you off there. Let's move on and talk about the team that ended up sweeping the Detroit Tigers, though. Man, O's fans must be impressed,
Yes.
whether it's timely hitting, the bullpen, or of course those starters. They've put it all together. Are these expectations real, or are they a little fabricated?
Well, going off of what we were just talking about, how the Tigers had such high expectations from us, I guess, it's a combination of us having high expectations for the Tigers and then them completely not living up to them, and the Orioles having basically a perfect series.
Oh, they got lucky a little bit.
They got lucky,
They got
but then
lucky.
also the Tigers played poorly, which translated into this massive blowout that I don't think anyone saw coming, and it's not really an accurate depiction of what the Tigers and Orioles bring to the table.
No, it's not. And right off of that, the Tigers actually in Game 2, at the bottom of the 8th, entering the bottom of the 8th, they were up 6-3, and they had a 94% chance to win that game. And then they went ahead and lost it 7-6.
Hey, let's look forward to the future, though.
Sure.
The ALCS. You have a team that held the team that scored the most runs in the league this year against a team that kind of no one really expected to be there. What do you think happens? Kansas City, a bit of a shocker as well, but I think the Orioles kind of have the momentum rolling along right now.
Right. And, going into this, I think the Royals pitching is going to surpass and beat the Orioles hitting. And, you're always going to take the better pitching over the better hitting team, especially in the playoffs when the games are lower scoring. And the reason why I say that is because you figure that the Royals are going to throw Ventura, Shields, Vargas, and possibly Duffy throughout that series. And the thing about Shields and Ventura and Vargas is that they all walk less than 2 per 9 innings.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Orioles is that as a team, they don't really walk a ton, other than Cruz and the name's escaping me right now, but Cruz and Markakis and Steve Pierce. But other than those players, they don't really walk a ton.
Yeah, and well, I think the thing here between the Orioles and the Royals is the Royals actually have real momentum to build off of. The Orioles is sort of a fool's gold because they just played a team that was completely deflated and didn't show an accurate representation of what they actually are.
Right.
The Orioles got lucky. The Royals had just had an actual real series where they beat, in my opinion, the best team in baseball before the playoffs entered.
Fair enough.
They also won their wild card game at home, which gave them that much more oomph to get.
And I don't want to
further
take
in the
anything
playoffs.
away from the Orioles. I mean, they won the series. Granted, they swept them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take good pitching over good hitting any day.
The Royals are that team that does all the little things to win, but let's go back to the NL. We still have some series going on there.
We do.
The Nationals, again the Giants. Giants leave 2-1. There has been a lot of runs scored. What do you see going forward in this series? Do you think they'll actually score some runs and produce an entertaining baseball game?
I don't think they're going to score any more runs than they have been. I mean, you look at the Tigers-Orioles series, 21 runs allowed for the Tigers against the Orioles. This season, only 13 runs total between the two teams. That's just how it's going to go. I mean, this is just a pitching matchup right here that we've got.
Right.
It's just they're canceling each other out. The Giants with Bumgarner, and it's just I don't see it getting any better than it is right now.
Well, these teams are 1 and 2 respectively in walks per 9. They don't walk a lot of guys, and they're both top 10 as teams in ERA, both with pretty solid bullpens and then fairly good starting staffs as well. So obviously, going back to the last question, you're going to take good pitching. It beats good hitting.
Yeah, and I don't think the Nationals are as good as everyone says they were, and it's clearly showing now. The Giants leading that series, and the Giants coming out of the wild card game, and a lot of people didn't even pick them to beat the Pirates, and now they're beating the Nationals in the series. This is just showing that the Nationals aren't as good as everyone said.
And also, I'm going to play weatherman a little bit. It's October now, and we know the humidity isn't as high. The temperature drops. That means lower scoring baseball.
Well, all of our questions will be answered later tonight at AT&T Park in San Francisco. That is, if I can find the game. Man, it's like these games are just on every single network. Bud Selig, got to fix that problem. But I digress. Jared Kimball is back at the desk joining me to talk some NHL hockey, the Eastern Conference, coming up next.
Hockey season's back, and now it's time to take a look at the home of the past 3 Stanley Cup champions from the Western Conference. We have Cam Ciesielski here to talk about this, our Barry Melrose lookalike here in studio today.
There you go.
Cam, we're going to talk about the team that will be the most improved from last season. Who's that?
So looking at the Dallas Stars, when you're talking about most improved in the Western Conference, last year they were a good team. They were a playoff team. but they got a lot better this offseason. They brought in Jason Spezza, Alice Hemsky, and Tyler Sagan and Jamie Benn, the captain of the Dallas Stars, are coming to the prime of their career. If their goaltending and their defense is on point, they're going to make a strong push into the playoffs this season.
How far do we see them going into the playoffs?
I see them coming into the playoffs as a 5 or 6 seed. I see them winning that first series depending on who's there. And, you know, if this team comes together, their young stars step up like Val and Nikushkin, they're going to make a great push towards the Stanley Cup Finals this year.
Wow, big words for that. Now the team that they pushed out of the playoffs last year, the team that will be the worst this year, according to you.
Yeah, you know, when you're talking about a team that really took a step backwards this year, I'm talking about the Arizona Coyotes. You know, they changed their name, but they're not going to change their play style, unfortunately. They had 89 points last season, which was 2 points out of a playoff spot. This year, I see them more as like a 70-point, 75-point team. Mike Smith has, you know, hidden some of the youth and the inexperience that this team has had in the past. Unfortunately, the past couple of seasons, he's been on the downturn, and I see that continuing. Unfortunately, this year, I don't think they're going to be able to get in the playoffs.
So finished 2 points out of it this year, and now you see them dropping way down the board?
Yeah, I see them, you know, probably 11th or 12th in the conference this year.
Wow, a big step down for them. And every year it seems like a star comes into the season. Seems like they struggle a little bit. Who do you see that guy being this year?
This year, I see James Neal Suggering. He's a familiar He's a familiar face in a new place. He moved from Pittsburgh to Dallas. You know, when you're playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins, you've got arguably the greatest player in the world, Sidney Crosby, and also one of the best playmakers in the world in Evgeny Malkin. So it's very easy for him to put up the numbers he has. Last year, he was about a point-a-game player. In 179 career games, he scored 178 points. Moving to Nashville, they just don't have the playmakers that he needs. He got so many points on the power play, working with Sidney Crosby, working with Evgeny Malkin. Now that he's moving to Nashville, I just think he's going to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, definitely good to be more in the spotlight this year in Nashville. Moving up to Canada now, we're going to talk about one of the young players to watch in the NHL this year. Who is that?
Yeah, so you've heard of Johnny Football. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Johnny Hockey.
All right.
I'm talking about Johnny Gaudreau out of BC. He's 21 years old. He's a tiny little guy. He's 5'9", 160 pounds. But when you think of him, you think of Marty St. Louis in the prime of his career. Anybody who's watched any preseasons in hockey this year, this guy has amazing hands, amazing goal scoring ability. He was the Hobey Baker winner at Boston College, and I see him making a push to being the Calder Trophy winner this year in the National Hockey League.
There you go. You heard it here from Barry Melrose himself. Johnny Hockey coming up this year. Don't worry, we're not done talking about hockey just yet. Jared Kimball's going to be here next, joining Steve here to break down the Eastern Conference.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww. You should pick that up.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how. Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
Danse, balance la cadence, ondule bien tes hanches, au bal du dimanche.
You didn't give up on sex. Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Find yours at bedsider.org.
It's finally time to tighten up those laces. Hockey is back, and I'm joined by the man, Jared Kimball, to break down all the action in the Eastern Conference. So first off, let's start with which team improved the most during the offseason.
I'm going to have to go with the New York Islanders. They've improved every single part of their team, which I love for a team when they go into the offseason. First of all, their goaltending. They were .899 save percentage between all their goaltenders. This year they brought in Halak, who has a .921 save percentage last year for the Blues, and I think he can definitely help out the cause. Also, their defense was bottom 5 in the league last year. What they do, they recently brought in 2 guys, Nick Leddy and Johnny Boychuk, who are recent Stanley Cup defending winners. And on offense, they were middle of the pack, which was fine, but they needed to bring some guys in who could score with John Tavares. They brought in Mikhail Grabowski and Nikolai Kuhlman, 2 ex-Leaves, who combined for 55 points last year. I definitely think they could help at the cause.
And it's mind-boggling to think in a matter of a week, you essentially shore up your blue line for a few years.
Exactly.
Great stuff there. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, which team has regressed a little bit?
I'm going to have to go with the Ottawa Senators. They really have nothing going for them right now. Honestly, their captain left for the 2nd straight summer. Last year was Daniel Alfredsson. This year it was Jason Spezza. He asked for a trade. Also, in some sad news, their GM, who's absolutely amazing, Brian Murray, got diagnosed with cancer, which really hurt them in free agency. They didn't really do that much. It also hurt them because their defense and goaltending was absolutely awful last year. 27th in goals allowed, and they allowed 34.7 shots per game, which just isn't good. Didn't bring anything at all to the table for a free agency.
And when you have your defenseman as the leading point scorer, you're obviously going to have a lot of problems in most cases.
Exactly. If they didn't have him, they would probably be last in scoring.
Now let's go and talk about a player that we think is going to not really live up to his expectations this year. You're saying Martin St. Louis. Why?
Exactly. Everybody thinks that this guy has never regressed, but what people don't know is that he has regressed over the past 2 years. When he moved to the New York Rangers, he really struggled. And in the past 2 years, he's dropped his goals created by 10 and his points per game by 10%. He scored less points each year from his 2012 year that was absolutely amazing. And I just don't see him moving past last year. He's going to struggle again, and they don't really have anybody to put on a line with him for the New York Rangers. And now they're thinking about playing him at center because Derek Stepan just got injured. And we know what happens when players don't play in their right position. We saw it with Jarome Iginla in Pittsburgh. He struggled, and they did not play well with him.
And that's interesting because we're going to talk about another player who got moved out of his current position, a rookie that you're very excited about.
Yes, it's Evgeny Kuznetsov. I know it's a tough name to say, but he got drafted by the Caps in 2010. He's 21 years old, and he is so fast. He can stop
that fits perfectly with them.
Exactly.
Today.
He can stop at ease, and he can start right back at it with his speed. He accelerates perfectly. And also, he's not afraid to get in those deep lanes. He's actually very physical for his small size, which I love for a guy that could play on the top line with Ovechkin and Backstrom. They just need a couple more guys to provide for that offensive skill that they need, and I think they could push themselves into the playoffs, put him on the front line. Ovechkin has moved from the KHL to the NHL, which Kuznetsov is trying to do, so he can really foster his development as well. So I think that would be a great place to play him.
Hey, exciting stuff for an exciting team. But don't go anywhere because after the break, Preston and I are going to talk some ESPN 30 for 30. ESPN's critically acclaimed documentary series 30 for 30 returns this week, and as always, it will provide insight and first-hand accounts on some of the most interesting and dynamic moments in sports. Preston, this made me wonder, what sports moment would you love to see a documentary or make a documentary about?
The decision.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Obviously. I mean, I got
what more would you need?
It's got to be on LeBron, obviously, because it's me. But I'm just saying, because we know a lot about the decision. We know why, like, coming up to it and stuff like that. But get LeBron to sit down for, an interview about it. Get his family members, get some people that are very close to him, get some of his teammates around him, get like Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Wouldn't that just be a compelling piece? Because this is the biggest decision
what would be more,
in NBA history.
More interesting about that, for me personally, would be to see his teammates' reactions. I mean, we already know that D. Wade and him are still friends. He went to his wedding as one of his best men. But just to see how they think of it maybe 10 years down the road. I'm not saying right now.
Just make it a whole
something
thing.
that we should talk about right now is Spygate. I'd love to see Bill Belichick on screen spilling his heart out, because that guy's heart is like, it's like the impenetrable black box. You can't get anything out of him. And through all the court cases, we learned a lot of information, but we still don't know truly what went into it. And if what was accused was actually true, the average quarterback predicts that 70% of plays that were run would be successful if they knew the defensive play calls.
He's going to take that to his grave. He's not going to talk about it in front of a camera. So it's not going to be interesting. Plus, you know what would be even more interesting than that? Anything not to do with the Patriots.
I want to know why my team didn't win a Super Bowl.
Just saying. Anything not to do with the Patriots. Well, that's all the time we have for you today. But if you missed anything or wanted to watch it again, check us out on youtube.com/1on1sports.
Also, be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @1on1sports.
As always, thank you for watching. And until next time,
whose side are you on? This guy.